So with this slide, we get to see the increasing numbers of heart failure for men and for women. So people who've been discharged from the hospital with heart failure. So heart failure, we'll cover that in the next coming slides, is the inability or the inefficiency of the heart to be able to pump blood. Lots of times this can be to disease like heart disease or heart attack, can be from infections, other conditions. Chemotherapy can cause heart failure. So people are being discharged with heart disease. Now that doesn't mean they're going to have a great quality of life if they're not having good heart function. But people are going home just like everything else related to heart disease. We are doing good with medical treatments and hospital treatments so that people can leave the hospital. Now, if someone has severe heart failure or they have some other type of condition, they have a congenital heart defect that that's led to heart failure, you can see that there are only about 2,000 heart transplants performed in the U.S. and this number has remained fairly steady over the past 20 years. So a lot of this is not because more people need heart transplants. If you look at the numbers for heart failure, it's just a lot of it, like everything else that has to do with transplants, is the availability of donor organs. So there has to be enough donor organs for people to be able to get transplants. And just like any other type of organ transplant that we'll cover throughout the semester, a person has to be sick enough to get a transplant, but they have to be healthy enough to get a transplant. So it's a delicate balance between those two. So a person may be in dire need of a transplant, but they may be too sick to actually survive the operation. So there's a lot that goes into transplants, but the major factor is that we really have a shortage of donors. So the numbers have not really changed very much, again, anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 per year. It's interesting when we're looking at heart disease, what are some of the contributions? You can see that if you're looking at different beverages, how much we have increased our soda consumption. I mean, it's almost non-existent in 1965, 1977. I mean, when I was a kid, I know it sounds like a long time ago, but, a soda was an occasional treat. Now for a lot of people, they're an everyday thing or sometimes, multiple times a day thing. So you can see that we've gradually, replaced our milk consumption. The good news is we're drinking less whole fat milk. We are drinking more lower fat milk, but the soda consumption has just gone through the roof. And that is, of course, a major source of calories that has been associated with obesity. So, the soda industry does a lot of good lobbying to try to say, well, there's really no association. But, if you're drinking regular sodas especially, it's a good number of calories. You're probably not eating something healthy that's with it. So even diet sodas, there have been some studies recently that said that the health effects of diet soda, especially on heart disease, are pretty, appear to be increased risk. So even diet sodas appear not to do very good as far as heart disease risk is concerned. And so looking at the amount of calories, so this, chart is a little bit confusing, but basically what they're showing with these bars is that look how our mean values have gone up from the 70s, to the, mid 2000s. We're getting far more percent of our calories from carbohydrate. Interesting that fat consumption really hasn't changed very much, that people are getting about a third of their calories from fat. Now, the American Heart Association recommends that people get less than 30% of their calories from fat every day. So you can see people are not that far off the mark with that. So I mean, some smaller dietary changes, they could probably reach target levels for that. Although some people talk about, fat consumption very low, Carbohydrates are going up, but it's probably not healthy carbohydrates either. So when you're looking at simple carbohydrates, like, non-whole grain products, that is also going to have an effect on obesity. That's going to have an effect on heart disease. And then if we want to look at cost, this ties in with healthcare reform. Heart disease is still going to cost a lot of money. It's very expensive to have an angioplasty, and we'll talk about what that is. It's expensive to have a heart bypass. It's expensive to take multiple medications. So in all likelihood, the cost of heart disease is going to continue to go up.